My name is Ed Gunning. I'm a lifelong resident of Orvis, Manitoba, which is approximately 2 miles from Gull Lake. The reason I always say Gull Lake, because nobody knows where Tallberg is, so now we know where it is. Well, as growing up as a kid, my dad always was involved in lumber and bushwork and stuff like that, and what he was doing all his life, and the hard work in the bush gang, stuff like that, and take contract works for the paper company for pulpwood, hire the local people for help them make some money for them to survive, and that wasn't the easy part of life in those years. Well, they cut the pulpwood to deliver to Pine Falls by horse and buggy, and later on by trucks in the 1939, 40s. And later on, he started doing lumber, cutting lumber boards with a sawmill, stuff like that, to build different buildings in the area, and people would buy the lumber off of him. And I think there's many colleges built at Gull Lake by the lumber that he produced there. My mom always wanted me to go to school, so I got to grade 12. I said this wasn't for me. My dad had a trucking business. I wanted to be a truck driver. That's what happened with my life, and that's kept going with that. They would deliver logs by, some might pull a tractor and trailer, some had trucks, stuff like that. They dumped them off in piles, and different people had different, what they want. They wanted 2x4 cuts, some wanted 1x4, 1x6, all kinds of different styles, different sizes of lumber. It was a hard process, and everything was done by hand saw, they call them buck saws, the 4-foot buck saws. And I remember going on my Christmas holidays to the bush council with my dad for the Christmas holidays for the week, and it wasn't very easy. And I remember my dad used to sharpen the saws for the guys cutting the wood every evening, stretch the saws on the table with these long saws, the buck saw, and he'd sharpen them, really good saw sharpener. Just by hand, with a file, and yeah. It's amazing, what, like compared to today, you have all these chainsaws and power saws, everything's all automated so much, and what a big difference. And but I think the old times are better than the new times. There's more respect, and you enjoy doing the work more than now. Everything's so automated nowadays, and nobody does that kind of stuff anymore. It was all by hand. You cut the wood, you piled it in the bush, you hauled it out with a horse and team, or had a little caterpillar with a sleigh behind. You packed it, you put it on piles. My main thing was hauling the pulpwood to the mill. Especially when my dad bought the new tandem trucks with the big boxes at the back, big racks, and compared to the old stuff, and it was pretty nice. Amazing compared to the last 20 years, how the changes have been made. Everything's been shut down. No more paper mill, no more pulp anymore. It's all gone. The good days are gone, I guess I'd say. When Mom and Dad had a store, people would work off the wintertime to pay their bills, fuel bills, gas bills, food bills. Just mark their groceries, they'll charge everything, eh? They never had the money to pay for it. And when wintertime come, they would go to the bush camps, earn the money, Dad would pay them, and then they would pay their bills off that way. Some people worked all winter just to pay their food and their gas bills off, their fuel bills for the farm. Life has been really good, I can't complain. It's been hard work in the early years, but we had some setbacks in our times, but we never starved, that was one thing. My wife made lots of good pierogies, so it kept us going.
Hi, my name is Orvis, born in Selkirk and grew up here in Grand Marais. I lived here for 57 of my 67. Growing up here was a real adventure. As kids, we made a living by picking blueberries and selling blueberries, selling fish for our grandparents for 50 cents a pound, and he'd give us 10 cents. We'd sell fish in the morning and newspapers in the afternoon, and then at supper time, wash dishes in a restaurant. Pretty busy day for a kid, but a lot of kids did it, and it was fun. Most of the kids kept busy. We had wood to bring in, water to bring in, and chores to do, of course. Everybody did. Everybody burnt wood. Everything you did, from morning till night, you were picking stuff up and putting it down. So it was a struggle, but it was so much fun. And as far as our parents worked. My mother Well, there was 11 of us, so it was a lot of work. And my father worked in the bush, and he did fishing and trapping and cutting wood. In the old days, those guys used to cut wood with just the sweet saws and stuff. And most of this wood that they sold here prior to the mill, they'd be cutting poplar and ash and stuff. And the railroad they would assign box cars for these guys, and they'd have these sidings there, and they'd fill up these box cars. And most of that stuff was going to Winnipeg, to Winnipeg Supply, taking it back into the city to fuel the city's needs. It was for firewood, yep, for the stoves. They'd even cut wood for log homes and stuff too, But yeah, that was one of the things they did, was cut wood just to fuel their own and then fuel the city of Winnipeg. So my dad was he was a cutter when he was younger, and after the war he had an injury in the war. So when he came back, he was like a timber cruiser. He would cruise the forest and tell you which to cut and which not to cut. Plus they'd bring in ice, and then they'd sell ice in the summer. And of course the wood that they'd bring in, they would sell to the people that had cabins in the beaches areas. So they were kept busy doing stuff like that. Everybody cut wood out here, that's just what you had to do. You washed clothes, you brought in the water, you washed diapers, no Pampers. And yeah, so that's how people lived. He also told me that in the 1930s, he would leave Selkirk, and they used to get on the train right around in East Selkirk by the Star Hotel there. And he said in the 1930s, when he got on that train, the whole way north on that train right to Grand Beach was all evergreen. And when the mill opened up, all the farmers start stripping their lands off to clear their land, and sold all the pulp to the paper mill, Pine Falls. And it's hard to believe that that was evergreen from right there down. He says, but that's how when the train left East Selkirk, that was all evergreen in the 1930s. So the farmers were the ones that harvested it and cleaned their land and fed the mill.
My name is Donald Schmidt. I was born in Jackfish Lake, Manitoba. Dad was born in Germany. Mother was born in Canada to German parents. I've got one sister and one brother, and we lived on the farm, which was a homestead. And we cut wood in the wintertime, cut it up for our summer wood and winter wood. Of course, we had to season it for a year or two. We used horses for skidding it out, and done all that by hand. Mother had a kitchen stove, burned wood in it, had a warming oven, and then at one end it had a container where you put your water in to heat the water. And she done all her baking, she made her bread, and everything on that stove. So, we never went hungry. We were well fed, because you had your own eggs, your own milk, your own butter, which you made yourself, and she was a good cook. I worked in the lumber mill, mostly in the spring. They used to load all the logs by hand. It was heavy work. And then we'd work with right on the mill, cutting the lumber and stuff, piling the lumber and so on. So it was a lot of hard work. It was in Jackfish Lake. They had a tractor on driving the sawmill, and that's how it worked. Because you needed 2 for loading logs, 3 on the mill, 1 for piling lumber, so on. Yeah, the farmers would clear the land, cut the big logs, haul them to the mill, get the lumber cut, and then use it for buildings. I remember in the wintertime, Dad would cut wood, load it on a sleigh, team of horses, haul it all the way down here, which was about an 8-mile trip, load it into a boxcar, ending up getting about $1 a cord. And it was anything that you could do to make an extra $1, for surviving. And those were tough times. That winter was cold. We didn't have the clothes that you have today. So I know I helped them, in the boxcar and that. I wasn't big enough and strong enough to do a whole lot. But I know riding on the sleigh, it was cold. You'd get off and walk behind to warm up. And yeah, it was tough in those days. We never went hungry, which was good. We didn't always have great clothes. In the winter it was cold. Even with your boots walking to school, we had 1.5 miles to walk to school every day, no matter what the temperature. And we got used to it, thought nothing of it. So yeah, I wouldn't change anything, because those were good times. People were happy, even though they were poor. It was much better, I think, than we have now.
Okay, let's shuck some bush. 1, 2, 3, 4.